you pick up the hyena? Getting a little bit. It's down south. It's this drainage line that we have the dam wall on, which creates the dam, runs down into the Milwaukee, and it's about there somewhere that hyena is calling from. Probably making its way back to the den. But the day waking up is an incredible time of the day. The sounds are a symphony. I think let's continue our drive and see what's moving around the northeastern part of Djuma. Must be something here, somewhere. I just heard two parrots flying overhead. Brown-headed parrots, the only parrots that we get here. This time of the year, they're probably going to be eating a lot of this bush willow seed. This is one of the bush willows, and if I take one of the seeds, I'll show you, you can see it's a winged pod. This has got 4 wings, and the Combretum family have anything from 3 to 7 wings on their pods, or actually 2 to 7, because the terminalias are also Combretum family, and they've got a 2-winged pod. But the parrots open it up, and they get to the actual seed inside, which I guess will eventually become like a nut. Squirrels get in and eat them, but they're probably quite rich in tannin. Not probably, they are rich in tannin. But they get bitter after a while.
No major updates yet. We found one hornbill sunning itself close to the vehicle, but it didn't stick around as I predicted. And I'm sure we're going to find some other birds sunning themselves as we go along. Still making our way back to the last tracks that Mark had of a male leopard. But we're taking our time because I don't want to drive over any tracks on our way there, and we are already in the general area where that leopard could be. Judging from what Mark told me about where the tracks were heading. So, that is our goal for now, to find these tracks. Sometimes you get lucky and just bump into the animal without even tracking them. So that will also be accepted by us, of course. Just like yesterday, for example, we very fortunately bumped into the Nkohuma Pride of Land with absolutely no skill involved. They were just on the road right in front of us. Most of the time, however, it does require a lot of time and concentration to try and pin down where these animals have moved and where they're hiding. This is going to be absolutely awesome. They're sitting in a dead tree just up ahead of us. And I just want to get us into a good position where we can enjoy a wonderful view of these birds. So there's 4 of them, a little flock. And these are the African green pigeon that are extremely ruffled up. They extend their feathers so that they have an increased layer of insulation, so they're all puffed up now and look a little bit bigger than they normally are. They've got beautiful colorations and little bright blue eyes. And in summer we really battle to see these birds because they are quite secretive and often hide out in the canopies of the fruit trees that they feed on. They're fruit-eating pigeons. Very, very pretty birds. And in Afrikaans, they're actually called papegaai duif, which means a parrot dove, which is a good description, I think, because they do look quite similar to parrots. And well done to RC in the Netherlands. Even though I didn't actually put out a formal quiz as to which bird this was, RC in the Netherlands quickly ID'd it and sent the correct name of this bird through to the final control. And if anybody, excuse me, would like to send questions through to either Mark or myself, it's very easy. You just hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter, or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. Well, I think these green pigeons are going to be sitting here for another half an hour or so before they get active, so we will leave them to bask in the sunshine and we will carry on. I'm really interested to get a closer look at these leopard tracks and start the process of trying to track it down. The Juma waterhole, and there's quite a lot of bird life around, and if you would like to carry on seeing what's going on here, it's quite easy. There's a live waterhole camera here at Juma, and you can watch what's going on 24 hours a day. It sounds like the Zoomy controlling the live waterhole cam has been following our vehicle. And I wonder if it can still see us. We will give a wave. Yeah. Gloria, complimentary wave, and thank you for all your hard work to all the Zoomies. But I believe it is Siberia who is currently controlling the camera. Got a question through from Gloria on Twitter. Good morning, Gloria, and thanks for sending your question through. Now, Gloria's question obviously stems from the fact that we got a report there of hyena audio being heard from this waterhole cam, and I think Mark also heard some hyena audio. And Gloria would like to know, how far away can you hear a hyena calling from? And at least 3 or 4 miles. But it does depend on a number of variables. The one which is makes difficult determining how far animals are away when they call is simply which direction they're facing. Because if they're facing away from you or towards you, it makes a very noticeable difference, understandably. And then the terrain, the vegetation, the wind will all impact how well you could possibly hear an animal, but their calls are very loud. So even to the human ear, they can be heard from a long way off. Now in winter, that there's not much vegetation, or not as much vegetation as there is in the summer, the audio travels further. And on a still morning like today, it'll be prime listening conditions. We're approaching the road where Mark had the leopard tracks, so that's good news. And from there, I'm looking forward to trying to decipher the puzzle as to exactly what this leopard has done. It's actually moving very close to the camp where some of us stay. The team is split up into 2 at the moment, as we've had to reshuffle accommodation here at Djuma. So half the team are over at Manyeleti and the other half are here. But for the half who stay here, it was close to us that the leopard was moving last night, essentially on our driveway. I'm just going to jump out and check this intersection for any tracks, and we'll take it from there.
Go ahead. You're locked in. Yeah, positive is playing faker at the moment. Okay, cool. Thanks. Fine, I'll do a loop maybe. Yeah. No rush. Okay, copy. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be much longer, but you're welcome to come here. They're far apart and they're very settled if you want. Okay, copy, thanks. Aubrey, come in. Go ahead. Obviously, that's the two my timbers are up there with those.
Okay, well, through the process of elimination, we've established that the leopard was not exactly here.
Okay, copy. The tracks of both of them coming up to the cut line. Okay, copy. Yeah, I don't know what they did. Someone jumped this to them classes.
Well, it sounds like Aubrey's found something, and Mark's chatting with them, so that's good news. Mark knows what's going on there. I don't at the moment, but we'll carry on with our task here. Question through from Penny in Texas. Morning, Penny. Penny would like to know if there's any rhino here. And there are indeed. But we don't show them because of the fact that they are poached heavily at the moment, and we don't want to contribute in any way to poachers knowing the whereabouts of these rhino. And Penny would like to know if I have ever seen rhino and elephant encounters. And yes, occasionally elephant bulls, especially the youngsters, may often chase off rhinos, but it's more a playful thing than anything else. And I have found these leopard tracks. They are heading up here, which is good news. And I also did hear hyena audio in this kind of general direction, looking at the drone. Who knows what could have happened? Two that are quite nice.
No rush.
Well, I must be honest, I can't actually tell whether I missed these tracks this morning when I drove in. I think I may have. So I got caught out and missed those tracks. But anyway, they are heading down towards the western side of the quarantine clearings. And we also just heard an elephant call across there. So we may bump into it, but we're going to focus on these tracks. And why don't you head over to Mark and we'll update you once we've found some more info. See you later.
Hi everybody. We're on Cheetah Cut Line, which is our eastern boundary road. It's quite soft sand here. Just coming back onto the side to show you that VM can try and point out for you some lion tracks of very big male, two in fact, very big male lions that are the Matimbas. So I've got a little bit of news to tell you, I suppose, having found these lion tracks now. The Kahumas were found earlier this morning on an airstrip northeast of Djuma, where we can't get there. And later on there was news of a male, one of the males being with them. And then I found these tracks of two males heading up. And I radioed that through, and Andrew's actually just found the other male approaching the... Oh, sorry, I thought you were looking at the track. I should be looking there. So Andrew's just found another male making his way to the airstrip. So it sounds like, and it would seem like, the two Matimbas have now joined up with the Kahumas, and they're just a little bit northeast of us. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see them, but it's nice to know that they're there. And it's a good possibility that they might come our way. In the meantime, we are wandering around on the top of this ridge. Now, I was hoping that coming up onto this ridge would be a little bit more fruitful, because the temperature's a lot warmer up here than it is lower down in the drainage lines. It's a good few degrees warmer. And look, there's some baby marula trees. There's one there. That's probably about a 3-year-old. And then just to the left of it, you can see those pale yellow leaves. The little one. Now, there's a tiny little one that's probably only about 2 years old. And then there's a bigger one. That one was probably even older, because it's got quite a thick stem. Looks like it was cut once upon a time. Then there's a baby terminalia. But here's a slightly bigger marula. It's probably about 15 years old. Very slow growing. Most of the trees here are very slow growing. Here's another marula that's very young. I've got one about that size that's over 15 years old. That little one in front of the terminalia is that tiny little tree. Stands all of 3 feet high. Is going to become one of these one day, I hope. Very important tree in that it defines the biome that it lives in. It becomes one of the dominant trees. When you look at these sandy ridges, wherever we are on top of the ridges, they are dominated by big marula trees and big knobthorns. Here, 2 more lovely big marulas on our left, and further on 2 big knobthorns. And it's their shade and their presence that dictates pretty much what else goes on around here. And of course, hoping to find some things in these marula trees. Now, there are a couple of species of reptiles that live in the trees, the biggest of which are, of course, the white-throated monitors, the cousins to the Nile monitors, which in turn are cousins to the Komodo dragons and the goannas and other monitors of the rest of the world. But there are also beautiful blue-headed agamas, big lizards with bright blue heads. The males have not quite this blue, but it's blue heads. There's a torchwood. I saw that barbet go in there. There's a drongo there now. There seems to be a little bird party. Let's see how many birds we can identify here. I just have to ask these guys to talk softer. So, what have we got? Did we get them? There's the fork-tailed drongo. Oh, that was a bunting that flew. Now, just there, on the far left. Is it a bunting? It's that way. Oh, it's down on the grass. Yes, it is a bunting. Golden-breasted bunting. In the grass somewhere. There, it's just on the edge of the road. Really beautiful little bird with a golden breast. You can start to hear some of the bird song from probably at least a dozen species, but I've got to find them. There was a chagra that just landed, but it's being a chagra, it's dived into some thicker foliage. You can hear hornbills in the distance. And cisticolas shouting. Morning, Lisa. Lisa sent a tweet asking, well, more or less saying that some of the bushes look quite green, but some look greener than others. Well, it's different species of plants, Lisa, have different metabolisms and, of course, different colored leaves. Dividing up light spectrum. I'm going to try and go forward a little bit. There was a chin spot batis up there as well. But I'm not too sure what you mean, Lisa, whether you're referring to the fact that some of them are starting to age and lose their leaves and some are staying green. There's just a variety of different times that plants do things because it just spreads the... how can I put it? They're just different requirements. I don't know if we can get the crombeck on the edge of this torchwood. And they're quite fast moving, and they're very tiny little birds. And it should be...
I lost it now.
It's coming the back of that branch, though. And it's now dropped down into the raisin bush. Both of them have, on their termite mound. And then into... I'd love to show you some of the smaller finches and things, but they move so fast that it would make you dizzy to try and follow them. But there, and that... It's the only little bird that you have that hasn't got it doesn't appear to have a tail, little bird, because of course there's the Bateleur snake eagle that as an adult has a much shortened tail. These are insect eaters, these little crombecks, and they're also very vigilant. They're very sensitive birds. They're one of the first birds to alarm, and they make a very shrill, trilling sound when they're alarming. But they glean insects off of leaves and bark, and as you can see, cruising around the termite mound trying to find something. Most of the birds that we hear have flown off, but there was just, every now and then, if you're lucky, you come across something called a mixed bird party, and it's a whole bunch of different species of birds that together form quite a safe environment because they're all doing different things, they're all feeding differently, and yet sometimes they even feed on the same things. But there's so many eyes and ears that if there is a goshawk or any other predator like a snake or a cat, somebody's going to see it, and once they all start alarming, the predator actually becomes intimidated and gets chased away. Squirrels, I can see there's another one higher up, must be one of the adults. I wonder if these are two youngsters, yellow tree squirrels. There's one much higher up, looks like maybe a big male, it's much redder around the hindquarters and the tail. Catching the morning sun. That's so cute. Hanging like a bat.
You have a little yawn.
Yeah, and it was stretching. It's this. I have to say that I've never really seen this before. I've seen squirrels sunning on a branch or a termite mound or a rock or something, but I've never seen them hanging by their back feet like that. Another one's doing the opposite. Can you imagine a bunch of squirrels watching humans on a climbing wall, thinking how clumsy we must be? But those tiny little claws of theirs can cling to the tiniest cracks and scratches in bark. I mean, they're lucky. This is a knobthorn, and the bark is very rough, so and it's pretty. Where the bark flakes, it's pretty strong. It doesn't break away too easily. Although I'm sure every now and then they probably hook their foot on a piece of bark that breaks away. But sometimes on smoother bark trees and brick walls, they can climb vertically up brick walls. Those tiny little claws can hook into anything. Knobthorns, I'd say, probably one of squirrels' favorite trees for living in, because the thorn crown above them does give them a lot of protection against aerial predators. There are often a lot of holes in the knobthorns. And of course the bark is squirrel friendly. Baobab's got a very smooth bark, but squirrels still manage to climb up them. Well, happy sun tanning, squirrels. Let us know if you see any cats. You'll have to shout pretty loud. That one up top's also stretching now. Rush of blood to the head. Who sang that song? I'll think of it. Maybe it's just part of the lyrics. I'm thinking of that now, those squirrels hanging upside down and stretching like a cat, or like a squirrel. So these two lions, I mean, it looks like they came all the way from Gowrie, Maine, right past Djuma in, probably was less than 20 minutes that it would have taken them. In fact, maybe even quicker, to get from the southern boundary across the northern boundary during the night. Plan was to maybe not only patrol this, our eastern boundary, but there's another road just parallel to this. I want to go head back north on that same road. And I've just had a question from Tina. Tina was saying that in February when Tara was here, she went to an older hyena den. This is just off Cheetah Cutline, Leadwood Road. And if we way down the bottom get a view, when we get to the bottom end of Cheetah Cutline, that is where it is. So yes, Tina, it is here, and Funny that you should ask, but sure, we can go past. And we'll loop back around and then come down one of these roads to Drakensberg Drive and head back north along Drakensberg, see if there's anything down there. This. Oh wait, the leopard track's going against the lion tracks. It's interesting. Let's see if we can find a spot where I can show this to you. No, it's not going to work. Yes, down the bottom there is where we'll go and have a look at that old hyena den. It hasn't been active for quite some time now. In fact, I don't think it's been active since Tara was here. And that was, I believe there was lion activity around the den. When Tara was here, I was away. Morning, Diane, from Michigan, wanting to know if that was a long-billed cromback. Yes, it was, Diane. This leopard could be Karula, went down and up again. The lion tracks are here too. Sleeping here. It would seem that somebody, or it could be there's a bit of confusion why we can't go and see the lion. It's not Arathusa airstrip that they're at. It's an airstrip on Buffelshoek or Torchwood. And it's an airstrip out of our jurisdiction. I think some folks might have thought that it was at Arathusa airstrip. But they were on this road, which is Cheetah Cut Down, and they walked north, and they just carried on walking north. So if you take this road north from Buffelshoek Cut Line, you would get to where those lion are. I think we need to go down Leadwood Road. I'm wondering if we... The leopard's gone down there. First we'll go and visit. Definitely went down Leadwood Road. I'm inclined to go around the other way if we're going to go past the hyena den. almost at the hyena den, but we're going to cross over to Scott and see what he's got. And he'll come back to me shortly.
Welcome back, everyone. What we're looking at here is an extremely clever yellow-billed hornbill. Now, it's come to the perfect place to start your day if you are a hornbill. It's sitting on the chimney of a termite mound, and this is providing it with both warmth as well as food. It was just yesterday we were chatting about how there's so much heat given off from the farming that these termites are doing within the mound of sand that you can see the hornbill sitting on, and all this excess heat gets expelled out of the termite mound through the chimneys. On a cold morning like this, it makes for a perfect heater, and the hornbill would have used its beak to knock open the top of that chimney a little bit more and excite the soldiers.
Yeah, thanks very much for the knowledge.
And it is now feeding on them and keeping warm at the same time. So it's a wonderful place for them to start their day. It's incredible how big its beak is. Yeah, it is very precise with it, and it is eating tiny little termites that we can hardly even make out. We haven't had any further luck on the leopard tracks we are following. He cut into quite a big and thick block that we are busy circling to see if his tracks don't pop out onto the other side. If they don't, well, then we can assume that he could well be anywhere in about a square mile radius of where we last had those tracks. And if we don't have any luck with the leopard, what we may do is try and pop into the hyena den sites again and see if any of the adults have possibly returned. So that is the plan for now. While we continue searching for this leopard, I think Mark's arrived somewhere and would like to show you something. So we will see you a little bit later.
I was talking. Yeah. Well, this is the hyena den we're talking about, and it's top entrance is very, very active at the moment. The bones that used to be around the top entrance, in fact, there's probably more than one den here, unless the different entrances all lead to the same chamber. It's very difficult to tell unless we put a camera down there, which is very difficult. But there is another entrance, and just recently we had some warthog living here. There's probably porcupine living there too. Nothing at the moment. Anyway, so I want to carry on. I want to go around to Leadwood Road because this leopard is on the move, and I think it might be Karula. I'd like to go and try and see if it's come out down there, or if it comes out maybe Finbands. Hoping, because we are not having very much luck of late with our tracking and our catting. Maybe we ought to go back to Scott. Sorry, Franklin. morning, Matt. Texas. I think I heard correctly. Matt's asking if we get any corvids in Duma, because he hasn't heard any, seen any. On very rare occasions. Corvids actually are crows. Corvids is a crow family. Thanks for your question, Matt. Corvids are raucous birds, as you know. Crows also, they're rather intelligent and they're rather opportunistic, and so the crows tend to live closer to villages and cities. There are some pied crows that come over. We hear them from time to time. The other crows that we might have, or other corvid, the white-necked raven, is more associated with mountainous areas. So find my bird book. I'll show you. Of course, then we have house crows that are invaders from another world. Starlings are related to the crows. And then there's the small black crow, but I don't think I've ever seen a black crow here. Head up Leadwood Road. I'm going to go see if I can find some signs of cat, and we'll be coming back this way shortly. But anyways, hop onto Scott's vehicle and I'll be back with you shortly. Hope there's cat somewhere.
Welcome back, everyone. And we're just enjoying a beautiful view from an elevated point here, close to the hyena den site. And isn't it a beautiful morning? In a very, very beautiful part of this planet. Now, let's hope that our luck turns and the hyena waiting for us when we get there. It's warming up now that the sun has been out for a while, so I'm probably going to strip off my big jacket when we get there. And it was one of the colder mornings we've had this morning. But typically, like most winter's days, they are clear skies and it does warm up. Interestingly enough, when I was tracking the leopard earlier, we found some tracks of a hyena dragging something. So who knows, maybe the hyena stole the kill that the leopard had made and made off with it. It's not unheard of. It happens quite regularly here, actually. Wow, we are in luck, and it looks like the hyena have, in fact, had a very large meal. This you will see very shortly. The bellies of these two adults are extremely full. This one, not as much. The other adult, possibly it's just the angle they're lying at, appears to have fed on a little bit more. Now, where is the leopard, guys? Where did you leave him? Judging by the size of the tracks, it looked like a young male leopard that we were tracking. Anyway, it appears the hyena could well have robbed him of his kill. It was tricky to tell if there was leopard tracks in the area because there were so many hyena tracks up and down in the area of the drag mark. And it was certainly very exciting following the drag mark off into a little riverbed where it looks like the hyena may have fed on whatever they stole. I couldn't find any remains, and I was wondering, in fact, if they hadn't actually brought anything back here. It's not uncommon for hyena to bring back bones and parts of kills to the den sites for the cubs to chew on. But at the moment, as you can see, nobody's chewing on anything and everyone's fast asleep. The two little cubs that you can see in the top of the picture are from one litter, and this one, a little bit closer, is from a previous litter, so it's slightly older, the bigger cub, maybe a month or so, at a guess. This individual's got a very distinctive notch in its ear. And it looks like a male. It is hard to distinguish male from female, but the current position the two of them are lying in helps us to take a calculated guess. That is a big old female. And females are often bigger than the males in hyena society, and also more dominant. But their appendages look very, very similar. This one here looks to be the male, though, for obvious reasons, but the females also have, again, similar appendages. We will wait here, and hopefully they may decide to wake up and play around. These cubs can often get excited and nag their mother for the opportunity to nurse, but they may have already had their feeding time before we arrived, and hence the sleepy, calm environment we're witnessing now. Just got a comment through from Chris on Twitter saying that the cubs look tired, and that could be because they are now old enough to run with the clan. And that's a very good point. only one of the cubs has been seen away from the den site at a kill, and that was a couple of weeks ago with Brent, and it was the bigger of the two cubs. That's not to say that every time the clan moves now, it will join along. It may join every now and then, but not necessarily every time, and we'll only be able to prove that when we see it out and about. So it's not necessarily that they are tired from running around with the clan. It could just be that they are still waking up after a long night in the burrow. But it is a good point and good observation that could be true. But they're still very small, these hyena, and it was surprising to see a hyena of this age heading to a kill, even though it does happen. It doesn't happen very often that I've seen in this area. It'll still be a few more months before we are seeing these cubs regularly heading out with the clan. It's still very dangerous for them at this size and age to be out and about, as unlike leopard cubs who can scramble up a tree and escape, and unlike lion cubs who have the protection of their pride, if hyena bumped into anything dangerous, those cubs would be doomed. Just got a question through from Marianne in Albuquerque. Good morning. Marianne would like to know, how long will young hyenas stay with their mothers? Now, if it's a female, it will become a princess, essentially. Hyenas are unique in that the females are dominant in the clan over the males, and therefore in this matriarchal society, the youngsters are born into the same role as their mother and will therefore become alpha female when it's their chance. Males could well move off to different clans and will move off to different clans, and that's how the genetic variance is kept in check. In terms of how long cubs will rely on their mothers, they're both male and female, well over a year, and that's even suckling. They can suckle for over a year, which is really interesting, as most predators will start feeding on meat from 3 months and by 6 months be completely weaned off. Whereas hyena are a little bit different and rely on their mothers for longer. I'm happy to hear that Joe is really enjoying the sighting, and she sent through her feelings on Twitter. And if any of you would also like to send through questions or thoughts, please do so. You can hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter or send an email through to questions@wilder.tv. And if any of you have just joined in the last few minutes, this is live. This is happening right now. And also interactive. So send through your questions and we'll do our best to answer them for you. Wouldn't it be interesting interesting to know what they're hearing and what they're smelling. Every now and then they are picking up their heads. Their sense of smell and hearing is so much better than ours. And you can't help but imagine what it would be like to have such good senses. Well, I must say a very, very big thank you to the viewers who are posting pictures on Twitter of when these little cubs were still tiny black fur balls. And that is the color that hyena are when they're born. It's a very dark brown or charcoal black. And slowly over the months they lighten and the spots become prominent. And at around 3 months of age, you can start seeing spots. These are probably closer to 4 or 5 months old now, the two that you're looking at. And it has been really wonderful to watch these cubs grow. They can sometimes be very inquisitive and come right up to the vehicle, checking us out, but it actually hasn't happened for a while, possibly because our timing's been off, and often when we come here, the den site has not been active. We're really happy this morning, though, because it has been a while since we've enjoyed their company. And it appears that this one cub is giving us a little performance. They are so cute. And these cubs can do a lot of great PR work for hyena, who have, for some reason I'm not too sure exactly what it is, got a lot of bad publicity over the years, and a lot of people subconsciously have this dislike for hyena for no apparent reason. They form a very important part of the ecosystem. And that role in the ecosystem is to ensure that nothing is wasted at kills. They sometimes do steal from leopard and lion, but occasionally lion and leopard will perform the same act towards the hyenas, so it does vary from time to time. But what they are specially designed for is crushing through bone that both lion and leopard are not capable of doing. Hyena have got incredibly strong jaws, and not only the jaws, but their digestive system is also capable of processing this bone. Therefore ensuring all the nutrients get dispersed back into the environment, which is critical. And that lady's got a lip caught on her canine, and it's making for a very funny face. And the little cub behind is just trying to get comfortable there, possibly trying to get rid of some fleas or an itch on its back. What can you hear? The two adults both lifted up their heads simultaneously there. Possibly other hyena, possibly alarm calls, lion, leopard. Those are all sounds that would get the attention of these hyena. And are these two little cubs going to start playing for us? potentially. They're certainly showing a little bit more energy than they have when we arrived. But possibly that's just the fleas that's keeping them on the move. One of the hyenas' defense mechanisms against fleas is by changing their den sites. So they've only been back at this den site for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. They had moved from here a few months ago to another den that they use, spent a few months away, and Mother Nature naturally then cleans out their old apartments, and all the ectoparasites and fleas will move out as there are no hosts for them. That way, when they come back a few months later, they've got a clean home. And it looks like the games have begun. And the mother got caught up in it there immediately. I think that is their mother. What is going on? Maybe there's another hyena approaching. I'm trying my best to listen, but I can't hear anything. Please, can you call for us? Okay, well, it could just be that the adults are moving off because they don't want the cubs to bother them. And as you can see, all 3 cubs are being left behind. I want to try and stay with these adults though and see where they are heading off to. Like I say, it could simply be that they are wanting to get away from the cubs that are starting to play. Oh, this is going to be tricky to follow them. But let's try. Let's do our best to follow them and see where they go. It is quite thick and they're moving fairly quickly. But this could be fun. And they could also lead us to an interesting animal or an interesting scenario that they may have heard or smelt. Just in front of us now. The fact that their movement coincided perfectly with those cubs starting to play is what concerns me, that they just want to go and relax somewhere away from the cubs who will pester them throughout the day. The fact that they did really prick up their ears and their noses makes me think that they may have in fact heard or smelled something of interest. No. This is their sleeping place during the day. It looks like they've performed this little stunt once or twice. And I'm just going to reposition it ever so slightly. Nice to know where they are sleeping during the day, though. Because now we can come and find them. Even if the den site's not active, I'm fairly certain this is where they'll always sleep during the day. Just far enough for the cubs to not know where they are. There's two very sandy patches here that have been well worn, and you can even see now it's getting comfortable in a little depression that it obviously lies in most days. There we go, getting comfy. Little sandy blanket there, nothing wrong. Well, it seems like that's the day's plan sorted for these hyena. They are gonna sleep. Just got a question through from Mol asking how many hyena is in a normal clan. A lot will depend on the area, Mol, and you get some clans that are huge. Oof. One of them just flatulated, and can you smell that, Brian?
Yeah.
Oof. And we are getting blasted with some very smelly fumes here as the wind is blowing towards us. Anyway, Mol, in this area the clans are quite small, and it can be as few as 4 or 5 adults. And it's interesting though, we seldom see 4 or 5 adults at the den. In other areas of Africa you may have clans up to 30 or 40 animals. So it will all depend on your area, but here in the Sabi Sands the clans are small, and there's usually only 2 or 3 adults that we see at the den sites at any given stage. Whether there are other clan members that we simply don't see, I'm not sure. But there is a lot of unknown regarding the hyena clans that we see. Even this one that we see regularly, and we know that where their den site is, there's often different members coming and going, and I myself haven't been able to work out exactly what is going on with them or how many members are in this specific clan, even though we know we are allowed into their lives and can view their den site. We don't actually know as much as we would like to know about them. Well, I think we're going to continue and see what else we can find. And while we make our way out of this bushy area, let's cut across to Mark and see what he's up to, and we will catch up with you all again a bit later.
Hi everyone, we're on Twin Dams Road, almost approaching Twin Dams at the moment, and a lot of hippo tracks here coming from Gowrie Dam side all the way down towards Twin Dams. I'm guessing they didn't go to Twin Dams, they might have walked through the water maybe, but I'm guessing that the reason why these hippo came this way is to go to a bigger dam further south on another property south of us. Now I was on leopard tracks, we had leopard tracks up on the cut line, and we went to that old hyena den, and from there I did Gowrie Main all the way to Leadwood Road, which is almost at Twin Dams, all the way back up Leadwood Road, not a single track. I went back onto Cheetah Cut Line, found where her tracks left the road was actually where the old Drakensberg Drive junction is. And coming down Drakensberg Drive and then down Mumba Road all the way here to Twin Dams Road, not a sign of a cat at all. So she's walking this way. She seems to be coming west through this very dense block of bushveld that Guillaume is showing you now. And I'm hoping she's going to come out somewhere at the dam. Making a noise. So let's see if there's anything here at Twin Dams. Now, a lot of you might be wondering how come it's so quiet this morning. I think one one of the main reasons is the rapid drop in temperature that we've experienced last night. The last few nights have been fairly warm. The mornings haven't been too cold. But all of a sudden this morning was a really chilly morning. I think the real feel of the temperature was more like 12 to 14 degrees rather than the advertised 17 degrees. Block is another matter entirely. Karula has a habit of zigzagging a lot, especially if she's hunting. She's after duiker or steenbok, and we're talking about an area that is probably in the region of 50 or maybe 100 acres, 50 to 100 acres in size. Very big. Stretches all the way from the Milwaukee, from where we are now, to Cheetah Cliff. She doesn't seem to have come out here. What I'm going to do is also just going to check on Gowrie Main. I see a couple of impala rams coming to drink. Perhaps we should watch them come down to the water. None of the hippo who came past here last night are here right now. They must have just breezed through. I think Twin Dams is a little bit too shallow for hippo now. Hello, squirrel. And there's a red-billed hornbill digging in the sand. What the hornbill is doing is, there's a lot of animal dung here, so they're probably beetle larvae, fly larvae, flies, insects, seeds. They're quite omnivorous. He saw something on the other side of the dam. I've just been thinking about, they are a bit nervous. I've just been thinking about watching cats hiding behind that dam wall. And the other one, yeah, the other one's also just taken off. But there was no alarming. run far. They've run right across the boundary. Well, it could be because there's a contractor vehicle coming in making a noise. Two vehicles. With trailers and step ladders rattling. That could have had some impact. As that Impala must have come over the wall, it probably saw the white of that vehicle. I was getting excited, thought maybe there'd be a cat hiding here. I didn't get that. Penny in Texas, does the lodge provide food for any of the animals? No. Looking at a couple of tracks here. There's tracks of a big monitor lizard. There's also a cat track. That's interesting. Penny, no, this is a very, very large national park. Millions and millions of acres of a national park. The nature here does its own thing. Animals find their own food. Trying to get a spot where we might be able to see those monitor tracks. See how it's dragged its tail. Just a line in the sand where its tail, the tip of its tail is dragged, but the upper side of its tail lifts and dots the ground every time it changes step. Thing is that there are cat tracks here, but there is nothing on Twin Dams Road. We're sleeping here on the road. I can see the from its tail. I'm wondering if there wasn't maybe a cat here when that Impala came over the wall, but confusing. David in Michigan. David wants to know where we get our water from. And asking whether we purify from the water holes or do we get it from the nearest town. We have a borehole, David. It is an underground well with a pump that pumps it from underground from the water table into headed tanks, and we use that for cooking and for all our needs, really. It doesn't really need purifying, but it is very high in lime. It's got a slight taste to it because of the lime in the water. And so we do get our drinking water from Hoedspruit. It's not the nearest town, but it's the nearest town where it's possible to get this kind of water. It's water that's been, I suppose, purified is a term. It could be used. It's water that has been through reverse osmosis, ultraviolet light filter. I think everything's taken out and then stuff's put back in. See this leopard went to the dam and then it came back this way. It must be in Bula. Cool. Still going up. Gary Main. That's why I didn't see his tracks. It's got to be in Bula. The biggest leopard tracks I've seen in a while. And once again, being teased, second to none. And I think Scott's also got some tracks. So let's go over to Scott and see where he's at the moment. I'm going to head back to Gary Main and try and head back up Gary Main because this cat might be up there. I haven't heard anything on the radio. The interesting is that, well, Karula hasn't come out here yet, if she is going to. But I'll see you later. I need to take some layers off as well. It's starting to warm up a bit.
Welcome back. And this impala doesn't look like he's in the best shape. His tongue's even sticking out his mouth, I think. You may be able to notice that. Yeah. The Tsar's coat also doesn't look very well groomed. Looks like he's had a rough night. Possibly he's been beaten up by another impala, and now he's feeling sorry for himself. It is the rutting season, for those of you who are not aware, and it means that impala will compete fiercely with one another. It's looking very intently in towards a termite mound where a few rattling testiculars are calling, and it's just making sure that the rattling testiculars aren't alarming at a leopard or any potential threat to it, and that's why it's very poised and focused in the looking in the direction of these little birds, which are calling just over to our right on this termite mound. They're tiny little birds that you may just be able to see silhouetted at the top of this bush. But the testicular has moved off, and they are very vocal little birds and call a lot of the time. They could have just been alarm calling at us. It's good to keep notes of where this disheveled impala is heading off into the vegetation, though, because I've got a feeling that this male leopard that we have had tracks of this morning is somewhere in this area. I think he made a kill that was stolen by a hyena, and is now relaxing somewhere nearby. So if we do hear any alarm calls from an impala, at least now we know where that impala is, and that may be useful information for us in trying to find this leopard. We still have time on our side, and basically Brian and I have looped around the block where we last had the tracks, and there's been no sign that it's come out. So it's somewhere in quite a big block of vegetation. Not many roads taking us through it, which makes searching through this area difficult. But that's not to say we aren't going to get lucky, and I'm going to go back to the last tracks in the area where we had the drag marks, where a hyena clearly dragged some form of a carcass. I could clearly see where they were dragging something down the road. And hopefully the leopard is going to be somewhere in and around that area. What may have happened is that the hyena may have stolen the kill from the leopard. The leopard may have stolen it back and have a portion of it up a tree. There are many different variables that can happen when hyena and leopard are interacting. And that's why I just want to go back and search a little bit more closely now that we've established and are fairly certain that that leopard is in fact still in this area to our left. Hyena found him and therefore may just be relaxing in the shade. So I'm going to head off and search for this animal, and we will hopefully have some good news for you when you come back to us. See you later.
Morning flower for the ladies, and interestingly, one of the few flowers that is still out at the moment is the senna. Used to be called or was part of the cassia family, not acacia but cassia, and then they reclassified the cassias, and some of the cassias became sennas. If they had flat pods, they became a senna. If they had a round pod, they stayed in the cassia family. So it was difficult for me as much as I wanted to. I got home, I got a friend to take me, to drive me home, and it was a fairly small car, and I had to quickly do a switch over from city stuff to bush stuff. I don't have much city stuff, and most of my bush stuff I wear in the city anyway. But I didn't have my books, I didn't have the right shirts. I took mostly winter stuff down to the Cape. It's very cold down there. And then it started getting dark, and I was trying to hunt around in the clutter of my house, my bungalow, in the dark. Didn't have enough time to do things, bring any of my insects. And of course it's just that time of the year now when there aren't any insects. The spiders, most of the golden orbs. I've seen one or two golden orbs that are still alive. They're not going to last long. A night like last night is likely to kill, and any cooler, now that it gets even cooler, that's also likely to kill them off. And they also golden orbs that are so small that they're not likely to reproduce anyway. They don't have the size or the nutrients. There just hasn't been a lot of activity this summer. The rainfall has been sporadic. The time difference, or rather the time between rainfalls, has been so spread out that a lot of insects, I believe, didn't even have the opportunity to pupate, to become adult. So it's going into a rather quiet time now. Arizona wants to know what's my favorite medicinal plant. I suppose the neem tree. The neem tree, it has multiple uses. It can be used for anything. It's known as the tree of 40 uses, and in Swahili they call it Arobaini. Arobaini is 40 in Arabic. There is track to come back onto our side of the road now, and there again. I can't believe where this not copying. Unfortunately we don't get the neem tree here. Anyways, we're going to cross over to Scott. I'm still going to see where this cat went. He's venturing awfully close to Tingana's territory. So we'll go over to Scott.
Welcome back, everyone. Sadly, my little escapade on foot through the riverbed, where my gut feeling was telling me there was a chance we could find that leopard, was a fruitless mission. Nothing was seen in there, no tracks, no growling, no spots. But at least markers evidently on the trail of another leopard, and if we do enough circles around this place, we'll bump into one at some stage. Or any other animals for that fact. Even though we may be focusing on trying to find leopard, there's nothing to say that we couldn't bump into anything else along the way. Mark for Scott.
Go ahead, Scott.
Marcus, can you give me an update on your tracks, please? The last I had of that male was heading west past the bush dinner sites. And there's also tracks of a hyena dragging something along the road there, so I'm not sure if they may have stolen the kill from them. Either way, no tracks coming out on Rebecca's and Zoe's.
Okay, copy. I've been on some rail tracks all the way from Twin Dams, there, Thailand, left the Gowrie Main. I'm now Triple M.
Okay, copy. Thanks. Good luck. So, I think we've spent enough time here, and we're going to move into a new area now and see if there's any other signs of life, because if that leopard does have a kill in the block or is sleeping somewhere in a big block, it would take one person a whole day to find Kermit on foot, so we don't have that time, and I can't leave you guys stuck on the vehicle, so we'll go try and look somewhere else, and hopefully there'll be some other signs of life elsewhere on Juma. Now, just got a question through asking, how do you determine whether tracks are fresh or old? And in short, it's basically the clarity of the track. If a track is very crisp and clear, you will clearly know that it's fresh. There hasn't had time for wind to blow more sandy particles into the tracks. But it is actually very difficult to tell. The substrates along these roads changes greatly, and depending on how soft the sand is or how hard the road is, obviously a different imprint will be left. And even though an animal may walk down a road, if you were to take 10 different tracks of the same animal, they would all look different. So it is something very difficult to establish. Well, we have found other life, and it's a very distinctive elephant who's missing the end portion of her trunk. She's also got a young bull calf that is pestering her for nursing. He's a bit too old to be drinking milk, but he continues to pester her day in and day out. And I think it could be that she's already lactating in order to get ready for her new arrival. She does look to be pregnant, and this calf may be trying to steal the milk of its brother or sister to be. That's the baby squealing. I'm just going to turn the vehicle around quickly so you've got a better angle. Mother seems very relaxed, feeding right up towards us. Come on, that is unnecessary. You're complaining like a spoiled little brat here.
Not very becoming.
No. Well, let's see if it takes its aggression out on us. It hasn't shown us too much attention over the last few days that we have been viewing this herd. Again, it's easy to tell them apart from other elephants because there have only been 3 of them, and I'm surprised that for now, it's about 4 days now, it has just been the 3 of them. Who knows, maybe it's because of this troublesome little calf that the herd doesn't want them hanging around. This youngster complaining that it can't drink all the time, but I'm only joking, that's not likely, and it would be interesting to know why this cow has separated herself and in all likelihood her 2 offspring from the rest of the herd. It's abnormal for one female to be walking around with her kids. I guess we'll never know the exact answer as to why, but we can speculate, I guess. I don't think they would have lost the herd. Their ability to communicate infrasonically over many, many kilometers through vibrations in the earth would allow elephants to keep in touch over what I've heard recorded up to 30 miles or so they can communicate. So it's not likely that they would have lost track of the herd that they would usually spend time with. Hello. I don't want to move the vehicle, so apologies for the radio antenna, but sometimes we just have to make do with the angle that we've got. And she is very close to us, so I don't want to bother her. Now that she has her trunk up, and keep a close eye on her trunk as she moves it around. It is missing the prehensile little fingertips, and she in all likelihood would have lost that to a snare, a wire noose that poachers will use to catch animals. Now, the problem with snares is that they do not discriminate. Anything that puts its foot or trunk through a noose or wire noose will be caught. And in this case, it was this poor elephant's trunk. I'm going to try and reposition now that they've moved off a little bit. But sadly, they're moving into thick bush, and every time we find these elephants, they are heading into thick vegetation, which makes it difficult for us to follow them. What has she found there? It's hard to tell through this thick vegetation, but what I can tell you is that elephants spend basically all the time that they're awake feeding. They're on a never-ending quest to eat, and they need to eat huge amounts of vegetation every day. So they do have a huge role and impact on the environment. If there was no elephants here, we would be in a thick forest. But they thankfully keep things open, and that's their role, to mass feed on huge amounts of plants. Their digestive system's actually poor, and they barely digest a lot of the food that they feed on. But their droppings are then further digested by other decomposers and other animals to get those nutrients back into the system. So it all works out in the end. It's not that they're taking a shortcut, it's the way it's meant to be. But because of their poor digestive system, they need to acquire very large amounts of food. This female, judging from her size, would probably need around 100 kilograms of food a day, but big bulls could require as much as 200 or 250 kilograms of vegetation every single day. And as they move, they feed. Well, that was a pleasant surprise, and thank you to Brian for spotting them. I nearly drove straight past them as I was looking at tracks on the road. John in California, welcome on board, and thanks for sending your question through. John would like to know how much of an impact is the missing trunk causing for this female elephant. And it's interesting, she seems to be very healthy and they adapt to their injuries. It obviously is limiting her to a degree to pick up very small things like a peanut, for example, which she wouldn't really be picking up here. But she's doing okay, and I have seen her using her trunk and using it very successfully. I've also seen other elephants that have lost their trunk, but a lot higher up. She was quite lucky, I guess you could say, because she's only lost a small amount of the end of the trunk. Sometimes I've seen elephants with the trunk that's only about that long, and even them can still manage, and they make a plan, they can still get food into their mouth. It's just a little bit case may be that make plans and do things that we would think would be impossible.
Because it should go back to the north of the Mediterranean after our summer. There's the tawny. The tawny doesn't really, I mean, I suppose you could have a pale patch on the tawny. And last night when we were here, I was so convinced it was a tawny eagle. And that's all it could be. The booted, that's a spotted, golden long-crested hawk eagles, and booted. The booted is the only other one, but it is such a smaller eagle, and it's just not likely to have been a booted. Also a migrant that wouldn't be here in our winter months. But a very unusual thing that as it turned, and this wind has only just picked up, but this is thermals that are starting to develop now with the sun starting to warm things up a little. And as he turned with his back to us, you could see there was a very distinct white marking on the tail. And one of our interesting eagles, and I'm sure it's a tawny with a very pale rump. So, I'm going to continue on this road. I don't know how much of a chance we'll get of finding this cat, but I'm still going to follow its tracks. It gives me a direction, it gives me a direction to follow, and hopefully we'll find something along the way.